Good morning, everybody. My name is Larry Jacobs. This is Pre-K-12 Education Talk Radio. We got a show for you today regarding the election and how to teach it. I've got two terrific social studies here on Education Talk Radio. Peter Paccone, our old friend from California, who's recently retired, but he's still working in social studies, not only with us, but also mentoring AP government teachers. It's really good stuff what he's doing. He's written a new book on the U.S. Constitution with a guy named Tom Ritchie, and we've got another Tom with us today. Peter only works with guys named Tom. Okay, so I got Peter Paccone, I got Tom DeMay. Tom is a government teacher in public high school, Westmont High School out in Illinois near Chicago, and he's also the coach of a national championship winning Scholastic Bowl team. Okay, and he's been able to take his team to finish in the top 20 in the country in each of the last 4 years. Okay, so that's pretty good. So I've got Tom and Peter with us today. We're going to talk about how to teach the election, okay, and other things that are important to social studies educators these days. So it's going to be a lot of fun. A show we're going to archive over at ace-ed.org. That's the home website of our Consortium for Equity in Education. So please go over there, check it out, see all the things we're doing. And, of course, listen to any show that you would like to. And so, without further ado, let me bring on both of our gentlemen here. And I'll say, first of all, good morning to Peter, who I think is bathing in a cup of coffee at 6 a.m. out there in California. How you doing, Peter?
Good morning, Larry. How are you? I'm doing fine.
I'm fine, my friend. You're breaking up a little bit. Say
Pardon?
Something. Say it again.
I said good morning. Can you not hear me?
I can hear you perfectly. Okay, that's good. It sounded like you were breaking up for a second. And good morning, Tom, out in Chicago.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. And by the way, just big news for you: the White Sox won yesterday.
As a Cubs fan, I wish them well.
When I lived in Chicago, I was a Cubs fan too. Okay, but the White Sox are having a, quote, historic year. Okay, and with 5 games left, let's see what happens. Okay, they've already lost 120. It's a pleasure to have you here, Tom. And Tom, tell us tell us about Westmont, and also tell us about your Scholastic Bowl team.
Well, Westmont is a small suburb in the Chicagoland suburbs on the west side, and we are a public school, a very small public school, about 350 kids.
Ooh, that's small.
Yes, surrounded by massive schools at Hinsdale, if that rings a bell, and Downers Grove.
Sure.
Very large suburbs. But as a small school, we've been able to do some tremendous things. We've won a blue ribbon from the national government. From the Department of Education. We have been recognized as one of the leaders of the AP program by a college board with a district that's 1/3 free and reduced lunch. So we've been making
wonderful.
some tremendous gains. Thank you very much. It means a lot to be here and at this school, but also with a selection of students where we have a wide range of people, personalities, ideologies, income, and a very representative sample. So I think teaching here is really like teaching America, and I'm thrilled to be here.
Nice. That's a nice thing to say, and you're doing a heck of a good job, I know. Congratulations on your team and your school and all the work you're doing. I'm really anxious to talk to you today. Peter, how you doing on retirement, my friend?
Well, I'm not quite yet settled in, Larry, trying to figure out what to do.
Yeah, we all are.
Different irons in the fire, so to speak, and I'll settle on a few things, but not quite there yet. Still enjoying.
Not quite there. Well, you did settle on one thing that's really nice. I have it right next to me. Your book on the U.S. Constitution, which you wrote with Tom Ritchie. As I say, you only like to work with people named Tom. Tom DeMay here today, Tom Ritchie. Just do quick about the book. I'm just going to read from the cover here, from the Bill of Rights to the judicial branch, everything you need to know about the Constitution of the United States, U.S. Constitution 101, and I have it linked here. How'd you get involved in that, writing that?
Nice to mention the book, Larry.
No problem.
Simon & Schuster, the publishing company, they reached out to me over a year ago. They'd read some of the stuff I blog about and seen some of my TED Ed lessons. Which I'm really proud to say now have each up to 2 million views, which is really cool. I never imagined
Fabulous.
that. But they'd seen that stuff, asked me to write the book. I was already under contract elsewhere, 2 different ones, and just didn't have the time, so I brought Tom on. I got to give him the credit. He carried the lion's share. And so it came out on Constitution Day, and been a lot
week.
of fun.
Last week.
Pardon me?
It came out last week.
Last week,
That's
Tuesday, last week.
It's incredible.
So, quite an experience.
Yeah, it's great. I wish you the best of luck with it, and I wish the country the best of luck with the election this year. While we're speaking of good luck, okay, Tom. And by the way, this again is Tom DeMay. Peter wrote the book with Tom Ritchie. Okay, Tom DeMay is our guest today. Tom, you got to teach the election this year. You're a government teacher. What's going on with that, Tom?
Well, it's a very exciting time because students are seeing it blasted on their ads and the yard signs. So, if I was in a different state with different laws or at a different school with a less supportive admin, because we have wonderful and very supportive admin here, I'd be a little bit more nervous. But we are given the latitude and the support to teach things that might not be the easiest to teach, and we're asked to push kids. And part of pushing students is challenging the stances that they have in government class. I think that's my duty because, they get the negativity on social media. They don't need that. What they do need is reasoned opposition. Like with the election, we all want good results. And so, but how to get those results, that's where the policy differences come into play. And that's what I'm trying to do during the year is, we all want safe schools and high-performing schools, but is that through a voucher program or is that through increased funding? And so trying to frame the issues like that as how do we get to the same result as the basis of the policy differences is how I work the class. And we get some wonderful discussions and ideas from the students that I don't know if I would get at other locations.
Is there a lot of, I don't know Westmont, your suburb, okay? So is there a lot of political division in Westmont? Is it the split Democrat, Republican? I don't know. Usually Chicago area tends to be blue, okay? But I don't know about Westmont. Yeah, what's it like politically?
In class, we've analyzed the New York Times extremely detailed election results from 2020, and the precincts surrounding us are pretty split. So
good.
There is
makes for a lively discussion. Yeah.
Yeah, and some students are less likely and willing to share their opinions. So being able to play devil's advocate, I think, is easier to do here because roughly half the crowd kind of agrees with the devil's advocate approach or a stance to whatever someone's saying. So it makes my job a little bit easier.
Yeah, it's amazing the way it's all going on. It used to be you just taught the mechanics of an election. Okay, when I was teaching 1,000 years ago, okay, we taught the mechanics of an election, what the Electoral College was like, why it was there, all that sort of thing. Okay, but now you're literally bringing up questions, okay, that are being answered each and every day. And you just told me you read the New York Times all the time, you analyze it and all that. Can somebody tell me, please, where Tim Walz is? Because he hasn't been mentioned at all in the last 4 weeks, last I saw in the New York Times. Do you have any idea, Tom? Where is he?
Well, they have a strategy based on polling, which that's our current unit, political opinion polls, and they've made the strategic decision and to kind of take themselves out of the limelight, but also they are late in the game candidates. So they haven't had the months of prep and strategic decision making that a typical candidate would have at this time. So, but one thing that we've been trying to do in class is what are the polls of the day. And if you're the campaign advisor, what would you advise your candidates to do based on this poll? So we're trying to use the polling stuff that is coming out on a day-to-day basis. Yesterday, we looked at 4 a.m. There was a poll from Minnesotan voters of how they view vice presidential candidates, and now there was a national poll about that same question. So it's teaching an election year is a thrill for me because it makes everything come alive and so recent and relevant.
And are the kids? I'll be with you again in a minute, Peter. But Tom, are the kids? And you're teaching AP. This is AP government. You're teaching, right?
I teach that in the second semester. So right now it's the on-level government kids.
Oh, okay. Are they interested in the election?
They're more interested in the issues than the candidates. So getting into the different perspectives and some of them crave the nuance of the issues, which is unlike the regular American voter, where we rather just see what's on TV and make our decisions based on that. They're interested in digging into various topics. I have one student who wants to research how the different units in our course are going to impact the issue of the gender wage gap or gun laws. And so digging into a policy area of choice, and then how does federalism impact that? How is this being impacted by our upcoming election? And with that sequence over the year, kids are excited to see how not just what an election does or what the candidates say, but what is actually impacting the issues that they care about.
And how old are these kids, Tom? What grade?
Seniors, 17, 18.
Wow, it's cool. It's great. Peter, what are you finding out in California? What's going on with the work you're doing with the government teachers?
Larry, I work with a lot of teachers, and I hear from many more. And what I'm learning is that just like America is split on a lot of issues, so are the teachers when it comes to the teaching of the election. I mean, some are really, really excited about it and think this is the best time of the year, and others are dreading it to the highest order. I know I dreaded it in the 2016 election. I can talk about that later, but especially the newer teachers. And they don't want to teach anything other than the process. They don't want to get into the ideologies and American government, AP American government. Ideology is a required part of the course, and they don't want to do it because they are so fearful that no matter what they say, they're going to get hammered for it. And one teacher I know actually reported that in the lead up, they even just mentioned that, well, Trump lost the election, and the next thing you know, a parent berated the teacher and brought it to administration. It was pretty ugly before it all settled down, just because it was just so loud and aggressive. And so teachers don't want to go through that. But
he got berated. He got berated because he said Trump lost the election. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
Because the parents felt that Trump's election was stolen. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. And so very reluctant to even want to teach the election. I know in 2016 there was a report that said a large percentage, I don't remember it was 20, 30, 40%, just didn't even want to teach government during the election. So it's challenging, and I think it's still challenging now. Certainly that's what I'm hearing, and especially from the newer teachers.
Yeah, how are they handling this? As you talk to newer teachers, how are they handling this as they come out of teacher college? Have they been taught a different way to handle this sort of stuff? Peter?
I don't know. I don't think teacher college works that way. Larry's been
I would agree.
Years.
I just wanted to ask the question and hear you guys say it. Yeah, good.
40 years since I've been in teacher college. But if anything, I just think there's this split. There's a fair share number who say do whatever you want. It's your classroom. Share whatever you want, your beliefs if you want. And others who are saying no way. That's just a teacher overstepping, especially when it comes to the question of whether or not to share how you're going to vote or where you stand on any of the political issues, whether a teacher should actually share their politics. So it's really, what I am hearing is there's no real consensus on any of this. Teachers are as split on this as most Americans are split on other issues. Most other issues.
So is it best? And I'll ask this, Peter. Peter, is it best to avoid the ideology and just to teach the mechanics? Is that all? Is that all we need to do? Teach the mechanics. Here's how the election works. Here's how the electoral college works. Here's where your vote matters. Okay. End of discussion.
In the ideal world, no, that's not best. No one would suggest that that's best for teaching citizenship, but it may be, best under the times. And I taught AP government for years, and I taught the curriculum, and the curriculum doesn't include a suggestion or any kind of requirement that you teach the election that is taking place at the time where you're teaching the course. Mm-hmm. But a lot of teachers will bring that stuff in as an example. And to be honest with you, in 2016, the only way that I did that, in 2020, the only way that I did that was by placing learning activities in front of the students where they could explore both sides of an issue that was relevant to the election, and then come up with their own thoughts and opinions. But that said, I distinctly remember various teachers coming after me on social media saying that I was simply being dishonest with my students, that if I don't weigh in on where I stand, and this is true, Larry, and it's kind of shocking, but I was told it's like these were by teachers who had very bad feelings towards Trump. They said not speaking out against Trump as a teacher, not making clear that you, the teacher, believe that Trump is dangerous, is like a German in the 30s not speaking out against Adolf Hitler. And the truth is that I was born in Germany. So, comment like that resonates pretty deeply. But yeah, that was said to me. I was accused of being disingenuous with my kids online because I had mentioned that I don't share my politics.
Yeah, and that I have to say something when you just said that, and that's because that's an easy and obvious analogy, and people do that all the time. Okay, they compare the situation now to Germany in the 30s. Okay, Germany in the 30s wasn't the same. It wasn't having the same challenges as you guys are history teachers as we are now. It's an easy equivalency, but I believe it is a false one. Okay, and this is my opinion, obviously. Okay, and it's that's the easy way out, is to say that. Okay, well, it's like Hitler, but it's really not. It's a deeper and much more nuanced difference. This country is not Germany. Okay, and Germany is not this country. All right, and it's that simple. What do you think, Tom?
I agree. It's kind of a lazy take. It's a knee-jerk reaction. It's a hot take that I would hope that as educators we're able to take a more nuanced approach. So it's disappointing that.
Go ahead.
It's disappointing that exists, but it's not surprising when we're in a fairly hyper-partisan time.
Yeah. Now the other thing is if you say I'm for Trump, I'm for Harris, okay, however you want to say it, that says to your students, what I say to you is coming from, quote, I'm going to say it this way, that's not exactly right, a biased point of view. I like Kamala Harris. I like Donald Trump. Therefore, I don't particularly like the other person. But at least now you know where I stand, so you can take what I say with a grain of salt. And it's not so unlike, okay, the Wall Street Journal, if they editorialize, well, they're a very conservative paper. Fox News editorializes. They're very conservative. It doesn't mean they're wrong, but you have to look at it from their point of view. It doesn't mean you have to agree with it, but at least you know where they stand. Okay? And I'm curious, is it best to share where you stand with your students so they can understand? Because you're standing there kind of, if I may, in front of them these days. Okay? Shouldn't they know where you stand? Tom?
I don't feel it's appropriate. I've had college professors make that incredibly clear, and then I felt like I had to parrot them in order to get the grades that I wanted. So I want to make sure that my students don't feel that. And also, I mean, if there were correct answers on what to do in policy, for like economic policy, then every country would do the same thing because there's a correct answer. Government and laws are not like math and science where if you do the calculations wrong, like the rocket blows up. It's what do we want the answer to be? And so with that, I try to frame, I don't give my stances. I'm fairly moderate. My wife is on the other side of the spectrum than where I lean, but we make it work. We find common ground, and that's what I try to model in class is while I don't share my candidate preference, because I don't agree with either candidate on everything, but I do share my policy stances, which tend to be a moderate approach. So kids get a little bit of liberal, a little bit of conservative in the policies that I propose. And my stances tend to be pretty popular with kids, but that just might be them agreeing with me to get me to stop talking.
It's funny. And I have to tell you, my old friend Fred Bramante out here, I live in Maine, but he was when I lived in New Hampshire. Okay, Fred's a pretty wealthy, well-known guy in New Hampshire, and he was running for in the primary as a Republican candidate. This is years ago, for governor, years ago. Okay, and his wife was an ardent Obama fan. Okay, and a diehard Democrat. So they're still married. They're still married.
Yeah.
Okay? And he did not win for governor, but he's a great guy. Fred, very interested in education and all that. But my point is that the thing is we have to learn. This is one of the things that we have to teach them, okay? That you can get along with somebody that you don't necessarily agree with all the time. Okay, I live in York County, Maine, which is the southernmost county in Maine, which is very blue, except for where I live, which is a little red dot, and I always call it the Seattle of York County in northwest Maine, in northwest York County, and the people out here are terrific. Okay, but if you looked at a map, you'd think they were terrible if you're a blue person because it's a red dot. Okay, and we have to learn to get along. Okay, and you know what? How do you teach that these days? Okay, maybe that's the question. Maybe it's not so much the government is teaching us not to. How do I want to say this right? Politics are teaching us not to get along. Okay, Peter, let me ask you this: we got to teach people to get along and respect each other. Is that what a good government teacher should be doing these days? Teaching that?
I don't respect.
And by the way,
other.
feel free to say anything you want. You don't have to agree with me. I'm not grading you on any of this.
Well, respect each other in a public classroom setting is almost law. I mean, if you don't teach mutual respect, you're going to rightfully hear from administration and from parents, at least in the sense of allowing someone's voice to be heard. But that's the challenge today because we don't live in a time where we are getting along, and we can say all we want that we should be getting along. We should teach kids should learn how to get along, but we don't live in that time. I mean, imagine what it's going to be like after the election, and I know we're talking about the election right now, but imagine what it's going to be like afterwards. How difficult that's going to be for both sides, given the talk. What's going to happen?
Absolutely.
But to answer your question, we have to hold lines of civility in the classroom for sure. But it is an enormous challenge because in the name of expression and free speech, kids will say things, and they'll say them respectfully that other kids will find extremely offensive and view them as fighting words, whether they technically and legally are or are not. That's how they'll interpret them. So it's quite the challenge.
It is quite the challenge, and let me ask Tom this. Tom, okay, should teaching the election, taking all we know, should it be more how interdisciplinary is teaching the election these days? Does it just fall on the government teachers, or is kind of the school involved in some way? I don't know how to say that, but is there an interdisciplinary approach that would make everything easier?
Well, it could be, but I do worry about individual biases coming in. The more teachers you have working with the content or the concept.
Yeah.
True, which is great. But I've been in some classrooms when I was observing, not here, but in my teacher college time, where certain viewpoints would be challenged and other viewpoints would not receive any scrutiny. So when someone is not well-versed in all the ideologies and the different policies, I do worry about that. But if done well, it'd be tremendous for it to be an interdisciplinary attack. The rhetoric of the campaign speeches or the debates, the statistical modeling that goes into public opinion polling, for economics, the discussions on of the budget and tax policy. It could be a tremendous way to teach, but I think the more people you have working on something, the more opportunities there are for it to kind of get fudged up.
Yeah, it really is. I have to ask you guys, next week, okay, is the vice presidential debate, okay? And you couldn't have, in my opinion, two guys more different, okay, than Vance and Walz. It's just amazing how different they are, okay? And when you know this is coming, okay, and Peter, I'll ask you, how did you instruct how did you instruct your students? How do you instruct the teacher to handle the kids watching the debate, which I'm sure we all want them to watch?
Oh my gosh! Now I'm going to be embarrassed because I'm going to have to offer up a truth, a confession of sorts. I taught government, both AP and non regular, close to a quarter century, something like that. And yeah, and in all that time, Larry, I never had the kids. I never in any way required the kids to watch the debates. I didn't. There's some teachers out there who do really cool things for the debates, which I only learned about toward the tail end of my career. And if I had known about those earlier, I probably would have had my kids do it. But I didn't know about those things. And I just could never come up with a cool way of getting them to learn from the debates. But probably most people listening to this probably are saying, it's not that complicated, but just being honest, it just never registered with me. I taught the election. I taught the ideology, but I did not have an activity or a learning assignment of any kind for the debates, presidential or vice presidential.
Well, there's a reason why you didn't. Okay, why didn't you? Okay, I'm believing, and you're a good teacher, Peter. Okay, you know the tricks of the trade. Okay, there's a reason back there why you didn't. Okay, what was the reason?
Yeah, I'll take it back to 2016. So, the community that I taught in historically was very conservative for the country, but think about how much more conservative it was for California, and yet. Administration and site district administration, even the government in that town, the city government, mayor, city council, gave me personally tremendous support my whole career. But the polarization that America is seeing today, I've seen in that town. As far as conservative as it was throughout my entire career, increasing number of wealthy liberals would be moving in, and so there would always be this clash. And I saw what that clash could do early on, close up, for reasons I'm not going to go into now. But I never I respected both sides and just didn't ever want to get caught in the middle of it. So to be honest with you, I think now that you're asking me, and I never have contemplated before, it probably was because I was going to teach politics, I was going to teach government, I was going to teach the curriculum, but as much as possible, steer clear from the current mentioning of the current elections as we got into the 2016 period onward. Before then, but not so much the debates, finding them more boring than they were worth. I mean, they've been interesting this year, but never really found the value, I guess, and feared what might happen if I stepped my kids in. That's the best answer I got, and it's good. It is the answer. I asked you the question, and that's the answer, and it's fair. Tom, your thoughts on the debate? Are you having the kids watch the debate next week? Have you thought about that?
Not the vice president. I haven't thought about the vice presidential debate, but with the most recent debate, I took copious notes, and I had categories of the topics that were mentioned, and I had students select the topics they were interested in watching and the topics that they wanted to avoid. And I was able to make small groups, like focus groups, where they watched with other students that were interested on that topic. They went to the timestamp. They watched each candidate talk. They jotted down their reactions. They created follow-up questions. And then they talked out with each other what they thought. And then they were asked to respond to what their group said, listening and speaking with others. And then last thing I asked students to do for that policy area was, what do you think the law should be? If you were in charge, what would you push for?
Yeah, there you go. Maybe someday they will be in charge.
But with the 2020 debate, I didn't teach, and so I was happy not to teach at that time.
Okay. Peter, you were trying to say?
Yeah, I was going to compliment Tom. I heard about what he's doing. It was really good stuff. If I had that, I probably would have done something with the debates. It was really well organized and walked the kids right through without grinding them, required them to be watching every minute of the debate. It was well done.
Do the kids seem to have, this is an important question, but this is a question that's facing everybody these days. And I was reading, I forget where I was reading it yesterday. People have lost, maybe it was, I know where it was. It was a interview with Pete Buttigieg. And he was saying how people have, if I'm poorly paraphrasing here, but it was that people have lost a lot of faith in government. and people who are, quote, undecided, etc. I may be mixing up two articles here. They're just not. They're not interested anymore in it. Okay, and that's the question. I'll ask Tom. Tom, do the kids seem interested in this? They really interested?
It's hard to compete with a complete entertainment device in their hands. But that's why I think getting in, because with the debates, they never really get into, and all the kids mention, the candidates never really answered much. I mean, one candidate answered a little bit more than another. But
kids are right.
Yeah, and so it was a great moment for them to realize, like, they're not really answering the questions. They're bringing up stuff that happened 5-8 years ago. Like, what do you want to do tomorrow? And so with that, I think it kind of works against interest in the election because, like, well, they're not really saying what they could do. That's why my policy, it's a semester-long policy project. Students at the end find great value in it because they understand how the different units work, and then they're able to take that knowledge and transfer it to any other policy area within the concepts that we work with, like the judicial branch and the role of the bureaucracy. Once they find out more about it, they do get more interested. But with the debates, it's just finger pointing and name calling, and that kind of tunes them out a little bit. So I got to bring them back.
It does. And I have to ask both of you something, which is something that has been part of, and I admire them for this, Republican strategy, okay, versus Democratic strategy. Republican strategy has really kind of focused on winning state houses. Okay, and if you look at the state legislatures across the country, they're very Republican, and that's where a lot of the Republican efforts go into. Okay, and I admire them for realizing there was a gap there. Okay, I don't necessarily agree with their policies at all, but I admire their politics in this. Okay, and when we talk about teaching the election, guys, we're always talking about the federal election. Okay, the presidential, if I may. Okay, but do you ever talk to the kids about the state elections and how important they are? Tom, I'll go with you. You're currently teaching all this stuff. Do they understand how important that is? I'll call it the down ballot races, okay? Which nobody understands how important it is.
With Illinois, our gubernatorial election is the midterm election, so there's a greater emphasis placed on that election, and they'll see what the issues, how they differ in the federal election, presidential election year versus the gubernatorial election. But we do try to take a look at what our representative has done and the issues that Sean Casten has pushed for. And they'll see kind of the issues that he's trying to bring forth based on local concerns, what constituents are telling him. And so we try to emphasize local concerns, but since the vast amount of, billions of dollars are going to be spent on this election. So kids get blasted with this. That's right. So it gets a little more attention, but sometimes there's also a bit of fatigue with it as well. But we do try to bring up the local elections and the mayoral elections and the issues, how our village compares to the areas surrounding us and how the needs of our village differ to those neighboring towns. And so it's trying to get a difference of policy goals.
And I'll remind you, and I don't think I need to, that there was this unknown state senator named Barack Obama, okay, a state senator. Look, and he has potential. He has potential. Okay, it's that simple. We got to pay attention to the state elections as well. Peter, what about out there? California is known for Proposition 1 through 700 every election.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. When we say teaching the election, I don't know what's coming up this year. Okay. Maybe it's plastic bags or something. Is that what's going on?
Exactly.
Something's going on in California, but yeah. When you talk to your government teachers, they don't have to be scared about teaching the state stuff. The federal stuff they can be a little nervous about if they want to, but the state stuff they can be a little easier on themselves. What are you hearing?
Well, I definitely did and would emphasize and encourage taking a close look at the local elections, and by that I include school board elections, elections for city council, mayor, as well as state assembly and state senate. And why? Well, because the kids relate to that more. Those candidates are more likely to come into the class. Over the years, I would put those people in. Members of the House would come in. Never did have the senator come in, but we did talk with one of them. by phone, and certainly sharing their stories, sharing the stories of how did Feinstein get to the Senate? Who is this person? Boxer, who are these people? All candidates who win on representing whatever political party, they have fabulous personal stories. And when you share those, especially with candidates that are local or regional or state or whatever the case, the kids just tend to have a lot more interest in it.
Look at Kamala Harris this year out in California. I mean, she's the daughter of immigrants, and look where she is. And it all started with local elections and a law degree.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. And in my district, it was also appreciated that I made contacts with the locals because all power, is local, and leadership always felt like
all politics is local. Yep.
Yeah, if we know the local guys, it might benefit us more than if we know the national guys. So that's why site and district leadership would always support. They thought I was building a bridge that they could somehow benefit from in the future. Yeah.
Yeah, and the state legislatures, they impact people directly, but people don't even know who the heck these people are. And the classic example right now, is the abortion issue. All right, that it went back to the states. That puts it in the hands of the state legislature and the government and the governor. Okay, and I just read that just went through this somewhere. Was it North Carolina or somewhere? Okay, where it boils right down to that. Okay, and also Larry Hogan, who's running for the Senate in Maryland, he was the governor. Okay, and there was he worked with the Democratic legislature, Republican governor. It's very interesting. That's a good way to take the fear out of teaching elections, and you can carry it into the federal stuff. Guys, we got to go. You guys are terrific. Okay, you're gonna have fun. Okay. This is great. And Tom, have you read Peter's book yet? Have you bought the book yet?
Oh. No, I've seen some of the pictures of the book release party. It looks like it was a great time, but having worked with Peter in the past and having used some of Tom Ritchie's stuff for my U.S. history classes, I know it's going to be great, and I look forward to reading it.
Excellent answer, my friend. Excellent answer. Okay, guys, you're welcome here anytime. All right. So always feel free to get in touch and talk about social studies teaching with me. I just love it. All right. So thank you, Peter Paccone. Thank you, Tom DeMay. Okay. And Peter, enjoy that cup of coffee. Are you awake now? It's almost 7 o'clock out there. Okay. Good man. You did great for so early in the day, and I thank you. Okay. Be good, guys. Take care.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, folks. That was just great, and I hope we got a few good points across. I think we did. These guys are good social studies teachers. We'll archive over at ace-ed.org. I hope you go over there, see all the stuff, listen, share with your friends, etc., etc. My name's Larry Jacobs. This is Pre-K-12 Education Talk Radio. Thank you for listening.